It's going to be obnoxious.
Well, I did it just to piss you off.
Yeah. Well, it worked. So now I'm P'd-O. You notice how I didn't say P-O'd? I said P'd-O.
Oh, I thought you said you were ketoed, like you just started the keto diet.
No, that would mean I would be in ketosis, which I don't think you can recover from that.
Isn't that just like the meat sweats? Just like a grand version of the meat sweats?
Been there, done that. Don't love it.
Yeah. You know I've never been to a Brazilian steakhouse?
You would like it.
I mean, everything about it seems like I would, but then I think about overeating meat and the feeling that is, and it makes me not as excited.
Never been to Fogo de Chao?
No, but I passed a son bitch.
Welcome back to Monday Night Conversations.
I want you to say raw so bad when you say after Monday night.
I know, but I
Welcome. Welcome.
I am one of your hosts, Scott Mack. On the other one, on my little Zoom screen here, my little Google Meet screen, is Matt Thompson. Hi, Matt.
Hola, bienvenue.
Before we get into what we're talking about, I just want to say the feedback from last episode is top tier. Then
Your sister was great. She was great. And I'm not
Jamie
saying that just because
Macklin.
she's your sister.
No, spectacular guest. Very knowledgeable, very smart, very mindful, very demure. I just
Very
one of our best
demure.
episodes. Well, one of our best episodes, if not the best. And I want to thank Jamie again for coming on. We're going to have a lot of other guests.
I mean, we paid her enough for her.
months.
We paid her enough for the appearance, so like I think she should be thanking us.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, and also her street cred went up. We're way higher by being on this pod.
Yeah, we have a lot of street cred. She does not. Now she has higher street cred.
Can you just backtrack for a minute and really just reverse that whole thanking thing and just be like, she's so grateful that we let her be on the show?
No, we have to pretend to be gracious, Matt. That's the whole thing.
Oh, in public, you mean?
In Hollywood, you pretend to be gracious in public.
Right.
And
This
that's
is
how you get people to like you.
I forgot this is Hollywood. You're right.
This is showbiz, baby.
I'm learning as I go. As I go.
Come on, noob. You friggin' noob.
Hey, it's true.
We will be having more guests on in the coming weeks and months, hopefully. But for this particular show, we are going to do a double dip, right? We're going to preview the AFC East. We're going to preview the NFC South. And I think we will get into a little bit of fantasy football tiers. Maybe we'll just do quarterbacks. If we could
do tiers. Yeah, I mean we'll basically do like a potpourri of fantasy talk, but we'll try to focus on tiers and take it from there. But you know how we get. But you know how we do. We start with an idea, but then we go on and give you better information by getting deeper.
Just do one more thing for me, Matt. Tilt your computer screen down this way. Yeah. Thank you. That's much, much better. Anyway, okay. Let's start with the AFC East, since we did the NFC East last time.
What a fun division.
AFC East is so fun. It's just great to talk about. I think there's two teams. Actually, there's not. There's three teams who are going to be fighting for the division title. I think that's fair to say. And one team is just
Are we still talking about the NFC East?
AFC.
Big difference.
Yes.
AFC
we talked about
East.
NFC East last time. AFC East.
Yeah.
So
the AFC East right now, I think, is probably the most competitive division in the NFL in terms of at the top. Yeah.
I think it's the AFC North could also be that competitive as well.
I don't view the Steelers and the Browns as functional organizations currently. Obviously, the Steelers are always great, but
Traditionally,
when you have Russell Wilson at quarterback, I'm not really going to consider you anything.
That's fair. Okay, but AFC East talk. So obviously, it's the Bills, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the New York Jets. A lot of people are high on the Jets. Let's start there. I am not one of those people, and I understand that Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson are going to be top tier talent at each of their positions in fantasy and in real life, quite frankly. But I cannot get over the fact that they are the Jets, and something bad is going to happen. That's what happens.
I mean, let's talk about the last 21 months of Aaron Rodgers' life. Involved a lot of ayahuasca.
At least multiple ayahuasca trips.
Many conspiracy theories.
Tons of those.
He was
a bum Achilles.
His last 7 games of 2022, he had 7 touchdowns and 7 picks, which is not good.
No.
Then he literally right away tore his Achilles beginning of last year, did not play. During this period, he turned 40. I'm not sure what he is. Was he great? Yes. So can he be great again? Of course.
Right.
But I have to see it. There's a lot of what if. I don't think I've ever seen a team in my entire fandom that has such a variance on how good or bad they can be. This could be a total and complete disaster. Mm-hmm. Or it can. This team could literally win the Super Bowl.
That being said, you would have to assume a 40-year-old quarterback, a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles, hasn't really played well in 3 years, is still better than Zach Wilson.
There's no question about that. And I think that the defense is good enough.
Right.
They have a Super Bowl defense. That's the thing you have to remember about this team. So all the trials and tribulations of Aaron Rodgers and the willy won't he, is Breece Hall an X-factor running back? Is Garrett Wilson that number 1 receiver that Devontae Adams is? None of that matters as much to the Jets because of that defense. With the Williams brothers, Sauce Gardner's was probably the best corner in football last year as a rookie.
He's a top 3 corner minimum.
Yeah, and that just shows you how deep they are and how literally dominant they are. I mean, it's reminiscent of an old Ravens defense. They're all downhill, they're all attacking. You can't run on them. But let's talk about the offense. The defense is there. Quinn Williams.
It's a Super Bowl caliber defense. Quinn Williams is one of my favorite interviews to watch. Have you ever seen the interview on draft day when he sneezes and then he blesses himself and then thanks himself? It's the funniest thing ever.
Actually, speaking of his interviews, that's a very good segue to a quick video that I watched this week that would actually cause some controversy with Quinn Williams. He was on Jim Rome's show to promote whatever he was promoting, right?
Jim Rome, recently, Jim Rome's still around?
I didn't know that either until I saw this clip. Okay. But Jim Rome looks old and angry, so I will say that he's hanging on. So Quinn Williams is on. He says, "Hey, Q, what's it like with Aaron Rodgers? How's the vibes around camp or whatever?" And he goes, "I'm not here to talk about that. I'm just here to talk about my product."
Oh.
Which is you just understand that if you're going to promote something, you do a little interview too.
Yeah.
So Jim Rome promoted the product and ended the interview. The whole thing lasted 1 minute. He then stopped and went on a 2-minute diatribe about how unprofessional that was and how ridiculous it is. And he handled it really well, actually. Jim Rome handled it really well. He can be, obviously he can piss people off, as Jim Everett knows. But
Chris Everett?
Chris Everett, Jim Everett. Yes, exactly. So basically he more or less was like, Quinn Williams, great guy. I know he's a great guy, but somebody around him needs to tell him how to be a professional.
Right. Yeah. So that's
and that was a really interesting Quinn Williams thing. But I think he's just kind of clueless in the media thing. That's all.
Yeah. Back to the team dissection. Listen, I'm not going to be taking, unless I get insane value, I'm not taking any of the Jets players. You actually stumbled upon insane value with Breece Hall. We'll talk about that later, perhaps.
Yes.
But that being said, Breece Hall could be the number 1 running back. Garrett Wilson can be a top 3 receiver, and Aaron Rodgers could look like 2022-21 Aaron Rodgers.
Well, if you're looking back at what Aaron Rodgers was prior to this New York experience, it was basically the Rodgers and Devontae Adams show. It was, look at your main target is going to be your first and second read. Mm-hmm. Then you basically are going to dump it off, whatever. So what I see this offense doing, essentially, I think they're going to move around Garrett Wilson all around the formation. He's going to be the primary read on almost every single play. Breece Hall is going to get a lot of carries and a lot of checkdowns.
Tyler Conklin is a weapon. We can't just discount that. Rodgers likes his tight ends. He's going to be used.
One thing I want to talk about with the Jets is their offensive line. I think it is the most overrated unit in the NFL right now.
I agree that it's overrated. People are talking about it like it's a top 5, top 10 offensive line, and I don't see any evidence that
there's a lot of ballyhoo about John Simpson from the Ravens.
Yeah.
He was the weak link of the entire Ravens organization last year.
Right.
Not only was he not a good offensive lineman, he is a walking penalty. Morgan Moses, also coming from the Ravens, goes to right tackle. He's barely average, barely. Then you get Tyron Smith, who's going on 34 years old from the Cowboys.
And injured every other year for the year.
For the last decade.
Offensive line.
I mean, Tyron Smith's been injured his whole career. That line's not going to be intact in a month. I can guarantee you that. I don't know who's going to get hurt or who's going to fail, but it's not a situation that's going to lead to being to a clean pocket for Rodgers all day long. He's going to have to move, and we're going to see that. We're going to see that Achilles have to really maneuver early and often.
That's what I was going to say. That we are going to get that Achilles is going to be tested, right?
Yes.
It's going to be. He's going to have to move like he did a couple of years ago because that line is not going to be pristine. Like taking the worst 2 offensive linemen from the Ravens last year. Is like, why is that? I mean, I guess it is an upgrade technically, but it doesn't make you have a great offensive line because our unit played well. It's just it is there's getting like top 10, top 5 hype.
And it's also very difficult to judge a Ravens offensive lineman with the way that Lamar runs around.
Right.
Just because he's not getting sacked and the sack numbers are down doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't missing blocks. It just means that Lamar is really special. He's just Lamar. So you're gonna have Rodgers is 40 and he's not 27-year-old Rodgers anymore. Rodgers used to be one of the more athletic quarterbacks in the league. He's going to be a statue now. So
and again, coming off of his Achilles, I know he's been in the organization now for 2 years. He doesn't have that much familiarity with the O-line, with his receivers. You got to get reps to get he didn't come to mandatory minicamp because he was in Egypt doing ayahuasca. So
Egypt was probably more hashish.
No, it was Iowa. I think it's reported that he did ayahuasca in Egypt.
They have ayahuasca in Egypt? I thought it was just a Peru thing.
Dude, they have ayahuasca wherever you take your ayahuasca, man. He flew his shaman out there.
Where do you take your ayahuasca?
I don't take ayahuasca, and how dare you imply that? I could sue you for libel right now.
Fair. Okay. I think we both agree that the one factor holding the Jets back is going to be their coaching.
Yeah. Right.
Saleh has never shown at any moment that he's a functional head coach.
He's a very good defensive coach.
Sure, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be running the offense. Is that a good thing or a bit?
He handled the quarterback situation horribly last year. Now,
he did.
Whether that came from the GM and the ownership, you don't know. But it was a very poorly managed situation where he just held on to Zach Wilson at all costs for dear life. It just didn't make any sense.
It didn't. Well, I mean, look, when you draft someone too, and you're Joe Douglas, the GM,
right?
You hold on to him and pray because it's your legacy. Look at Trey Lance right now. I mean, Shanahan realized Lance was bad fast enough that he got him out of there quicker than any top 5 pick I've ever seen.
Right, and it was for like a 4th-round pick or something. I think
it was for nothing, and then Lance, and then the Cowboys were like, "All right, let's see if he can take over for Dak next year." And he throws 5 picks in his preseason game last week. I don't know what's going on.
There's another strike against the Jets. So I mean, the variance of the Jets, and I think you said this pretty much earlier. It could be Super Bowl or it could be out of the playoffs. I mean, it's very high.
But on paper, I will say this: offensively, defensively, across the board, they are the best team in that division on paper.
Okay, I can meet you there, I guess. Position
by position, they're going to stack up really well, and we'll get to why they're stacking up really well because we're going to talk about the qualities of the other teams in the division, but also the glaring deficiencies and a lot of new deficiencies that have kind of arisen.
The other, let's go from on paper the best team to in any universe the worst team, which is the New England Patriots. By far and away, this is the worst Patriots team probably that I can remember.
Yeah. I mean, this is
the
like
last 35 years.
Yeah, this is reminding me of when I first started watching football at 5-6 years old, and the Patriots were a laughingstock.
This is before Parcells, before Bledsoe, before Kraft. This harkens back to that era of Patriots teams.
And I will say this though, I'm a Drake May guy.
I like Drake May.
I don't just like Drake May. I think Drake May is special, and I think I'm really concerned that he is in a situation that might ruin his career though.
Well, so that's the whole point of this season for the Patriots is to ease Drake May into this offense, and then 6, 7, 8 games in, once like the season really gets going, then put him in and see what he can do. Have Jacoby Brissett take the first half of the season brunt when the teams are just teeing off on the Patriots.
I don't think Drake May's that guy though that needs to sit. I think Drake May is an alpha's alpha. I think that he comes from an athletic family. He played at North Carolina with lesser talent than than all the big teams he was playing. So I think he's kind of used to it.
Yeah, no, I hear that point. I understand that. The Patriots' offensive line is like comically bad.
It's bad.
Like it's the worst offensive line in football.
And they dismantled their defense on purpose.
Yeah, and they traded Judon.
Barmore's out for the year.
Barmore's out for the year. They get Christian Gonzalez back, which is good.
Is this going to be peak Christian Gonzalez or probably next year? So
yeah, right.
There's not but if you're the Patriots, what you're hoping for is this. You're hoping for Drake May to show that he's your quarterback of the future. That's the number one priority of this season. Nothing else matters, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah.
The second thing is to get the first pick in the draft and trade that sumbitch.
Yes,
having a quarterback,
get a Bears level ransom.
Having the first pick and having a quarterback is the best thing that you can have for a growing team. It's how the Rams became the Rams. It's how the Redskins. I'm just kidding. The Redskins and the Commanders just have always sucked, no matter how good the trades that they made are.
Right. No, it's how the Bears have set up Caleb Williams. So
Exactly.
I will ask you this one question, Matt. Who are the Patriots receivers?
Well, you've got Polk, who was at Washington last year and was Washington's number 2 or 3 receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, he was certainly no room.
We're talking about James K.
Jalen Polk.
Ah, okay. I thought you were talking about James K.
No, James K. His uncle.
Got it.
His uncle was president in the 1800s. Yeah, that's just history.
So my point of asking the question is
we should send this to Dan Carlin, and then he could do some research on Jalen Polk's history with James K.
With the James K. Polk.
Yes.
I literally don't know who the receivers are, and I pay attention.
Well, there's Thornton, who is fast but is skinny and can't really catch very well or run routes. The thing is, Bill Belichick doesn't know how to draft, has never known how to draft,
right.
And is essentially left the Patriots with zero talent,
empty in the cupboard. I mean, especially
empty.
On offense. On defense, they have some pieces there.
Do they?
Christian Gonzalez
is a piece, but you don't want to start from the outside in.
Right. No, I
I mean, it's very easy to avoid a cornerback on one side of the field.
And that's why the team wasn't a disaster last year, is because they had a top 10 defense. This year, I just don't even know. I mean, this is what in the NBA they call a tanking year, and that doesn't normally happen in football. So it's quite bizarre.
Everyone always talks about how no college team could ever beat an NFL team. The Patriots are dangerously close to being in that talk about them versus Georgia, who would win, because it's a thing. Georgia may have more talent than the entire New England Patriots organization at this point. That's how bad it is, and unfortunately, that's going to be part of Belichick's legacy, that he left this team in shambles, or he got out at the right time. And that's depending on how you spin it. Out at the right time. These were all his decisions. Yeah. Every man on that field last year was there because of Bill Belichick.
We've known that he's been a bad GM for years. I mean,
once he lost Pioli,
he was a great coach.
He's been bad since. And look, a few guys pop here and there. They get some good prime free agents because people want to win. They wanted to play with Tom Brady, but it wasn't a lot of homegrown guys that were dominating at the end. it all started that way with your Lawyer Malloys and your Richard Seymours and your Tom Brady's, obviously. And it just morphed into, let's sign Randy Moss. Let's sign Wes Welker. Let's do this. Let's do that.
And Matt, where did Pioli go to?
The Chiefs.
The Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes. And he didn't last, though.
No, but he started something pretty nice with Andy.
No, he's the one that brought in Alex Smith, though.
Yeah.
So in a way, it got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's not too much more to talk about the Patriots.
We don't need to talk about the Patriots anymore, other than it's good that Boston has something bad happen to them for once.
Right. A very polarizing team in the AFC East is Miami Dolphins. I've seen people pick them to go to the AFC Championship game. I've seen people pick them not to go to the playoffs. I've seen the variance is high. The offense is pretty much the same as it was last year.
The offense is phenomenal, and is arguably the best offense in the entire league.
Right.
I'm not afraid to say that. From a fantasy,
they're certainly up there with Detroit and the Rams. I think those
they're more explosive than all those teams. They might not be as consistent or whatever. And Tua obviously is an injury risk in itself, but the offense as a whole, solid line. Obviously, world-class receivers, world-class running backs. It's a lot, and you have a world-class offensive-minded coach. The thing that Miami reminds me of is a Big 12 team, where they're going to have this high-powered offense, but they are going to have a leaky defense.
Yeah, they're going to score 50 points a game, but they're going to give up 47.
Oh yes, and it's probably going to hamper them against the top defenses because I just don't think they're going to get enough stops. I really don't.
They lost they lost their defensive tackle who went to the Raiders, Simpkins, I think.
Wilkins,
thank you.
Christian Wilkins from Clemson. He was the heart and soul of their defense. He was their best interior pass rusher, their best overall player probably, considering the age of Jalen Ramsey. That's another factor. Jalen Ramsey isn't young anymore, is more of a slot guy, can't really cover on the outside as well anymore. I don't really know what to think of the team. There's talented guys mixed in. I will say that
their defense isn't devoid of talent. They have talented players.
And they did bring in the Ravens defensive line coach Anthony Weaver, who is a solid human being and obviously a great football mind. And my son played basketball with him, so I root for him pretty hard.
With his son, to be clear.
What?
Your son played basketball with his son.
With his son.
Yeah.
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 And him.
Oh, nice.
No, I'm kidding. I don't think that happened.
I imagine. No, so they have pieces. Their defense is not going to be a sieve, right? But it's not going to be a top 10, 12 defense, certainly. But
no, it's going to come down to his health.
They're going to likely outscore everybody. My question is their offense going to regress at all, considering people have had a year to watch the tape to understand, because they did a lot of innovation last year with their motion on offense. They sort of took it from the CFL, where they're moving people and putting people in motion, and they're getting these angles of attack, and that gets them free down the field, right? Whether it's Tyreek Hill a lot of the time, or Waddle, or it's one of their running backs.
I don't think that there's any way that speed can be stopped. I don't think there's any true design when you have A-Chain who runs a 4.3, Tyreek who runs a 4.2, and Waddle who runs a 4.3 on the field at the same time to go along with other professional players. It's just too much sometimes. It's a lot like the Rams with Kupp and Nacua, more in a stretching the field sense. Kupp and Nacua are more in a getting open sense, where those two together on the field make it almost impossible to stop. It's one thing to try to shade Tyreek Hill and say, okay, let's double him, let's put somebody over top him, let's put an umbrella on him. But when you have a second guy on the other side of the field that's pretty much a carbon copy of the other guy, it sets up a situation where defenses are going to have to get to Tua, and it's their only option. So,
well, speaking of bringing up Tua, it's the perfect timing. Can Tua stay healthy? Can you pencil him in for 17 games? I don't think you can.
You can pencil it. You just can't write it with ink.
Right. It's not in pen.
I mean, you're definitely going to need a bigger racer.
Yeah. He had a concussion problem a couple of years ago. Last year he was relatively healthy considering, but he also apparently lost a bunch of weight this year and is much thinner than he was.
I don't think that's a good thing.
No, that's the whole point.
If Tua could still throw the same, I'd like him to look like the Michelin Man, to be honest. I'd like him to be I want a fat Tua. I want a fat, pudgy, roly-poly Tua if it meant him staying healthy. And he could still and he could still throw with the accuracy and the zip that he has. But skinny Tua scares the shit out of me. Yeah. Like, I would be terrified. He's he looks so tiny without the weight. He basically looks like Bryce Young now.
That being said, I still think their offense is going to be explosive, and I still think they're going to win double-digit games this year.
I don't see why they won't, because I think that they're just going to simply outscore people enough to make the playoffs. I think cold weather games and legit defenses that can pressure Tua are going to cause them problems in the playoffs. I don't see how. Yeah. I don't see this roster going far in the playoffs, but making the playoffs.
They went to Kansas City last year, and they just pretty much rolled over. I mean, they were like, "It's cold. I want to go home." And
again, Tua is a Hawaiian who played in Alabama. He's and now is a Miami Dolphin. The guy didn't grow up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He doesn't really. He's not totally familiar with throwing a hard frozen ball. It's just very different.
Someone who clearly is familiar with throwing a hard frozen ball is Josh Allen.
Well, that guy can throw any ball.
And they, a lot of people are out on the Bills in terms of the division and Super Bowl contention this year. I'm not one of them. I'm a big fan. Josh Allen is a top 2 quarterback in this league. And I think whenever you have the best quarterback on the field, you have a chance to win every single game. Now, they lost Stephon Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis. They didn't do a ton to
Matt Milano's hurt.
Better. Their best linebacker, Matt Milano, got hurt for the year.
They lost Tre'Davious White.
Out. That all being said,
there's more.
You still have Josh Allen.
You do have Josh Allen, and he is good for a certain number of wins. But let's be really clear. This roster is not good. It is a piss-poor roster overall right now. Top to bottom, they've lost too many guys. The defensive line is still good. Their linebacking core, they lost last year. They lose Tremaine Edmonds to the Bears. This year they lose Milano again with another injury. Tre'Davious White, who for years was their shutdown corner, is gone. I don't see the talent there. Keon Coleman was their draft pick. They passed up all the other guys in the first round, all the late guys. Xavier Worthy. They're like, Chiefs, hey, take the 4.2 speed guy. He's yours. We're going to draft the 4.6 speed guy because he's tall.
He's huge.
He is huge. And I
watched
watched
Florida State. You don't like Florida State receivers?
I just don't know if I love Keon Coleman because I watched Keon Coleman play for years at Michigan State before he went to Florida State. Yeah. And he's very plodding. There's not a lot to him. There's not a lot of wiggle to him. There's not a lot of burst. I think that he can serve a purpose in the NFL. I think he certainly can be a good possession guy, good sideline guy, a nice red zone guy as well. But you lose Stephon Diggs, who's caught 100 balls for 5 straight years. What are you left with? You lose Gabe Davis, who caught 4 touchdowns for you when you almost go to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and you replace it with nothing. You replace it with absolutely nothing. Running back, you don't even replace. You're going with James Cook, which is great, but he's 175 pounds.
You love James Cook.
I love James Cook in theory, but I also am aware that he's a small running back in a hard-hitting division with hard-hitting people in a cold weather environment, and I'm concerned about his long-term viability. I really am.
Once Joe Brady took over from Kellen Moore, James Cook thrived last year. He was a top 10 running back the second half of
Absolutely.
The year. I think he's going to have a big year personally.
Listen, Cook and Kincaid are the 2 people in the offense that I have faith in, and I do believe that they're going to be good. And Josh Allen will all these guys to be functional. Trust me.
Josh Allen is also, like you said, he's good for a certain amount of wins himself. I think he's going to be involved in the running game which doesn't bode well for his health, short or long term.
I have a theory. I think any sign of any injury with him, they're going to shut him down.
In what, for the year? What do you mean?
I don't. I think they must know that this team has no chance of a Super Bowl. This is not a Super Bowl roster. I think we can both agree to that.
I don't think you can.
If he's not making the Super Bowl with Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano and a healthy Tre'Davious White with a younger Poyer and Hyde at safety, what is he going to do when all these people are gone and he's got no one to throw to? I mean, yes, these are NFL receivers, but it's not Stephon Diggs. And Gabe Davis was frustrating, but he is super talented, and he's gone.
Gabe Davis, you're giving this guy too much credit. He was not like a top half second receiver on
he was
an
still
NFL team.
At the very least, he's still a field stretcher, and when you have to honor that, you're still taking a safety with you deep, and you're opening up things for Stephon Diggs underneath, and you're opening things up.
And Stephon Diggs had nothing in the second half of last year, and they still almost made the AFC Championship game.
I get that, and I think they. I'm not saying they won't make the playoffs. I'm just saying that roster is the worst roster Josh Allen has ever played with, and I think it's a fact.
Yeah, I don't. People said the same thing about
the Chiefs last year. That's true.
Yeah,
but Josh Allen's not Mahomes, and I don't care what you say, he's not.
Josh Allen is not Mahomes, but he's daggone close.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he is pretty close.
Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls. How many has Josh Allen won?
Okay,
zero. So that's not close. I mean,
3-0. 3-0 is not close.
I mean, another concern with Josh Allen this year is the possibility that he might overrush. He might have to tuck the ball, run, get hit hard.
I brought that up.
Way more often. So I don't know. He's great. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks ever to watch. I think he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. In the right situation, he can be good, and he can be great, and he can win a Super Bowl maybe one day, but it's not with this roster, in my opinion.
So, that being said, what is your ranking in terms of first to last in the AFC East?
Well, obviously the Patriots are going to win. Oh, sorry, it's not 5 years ago. So obviously I'm sure we're both. The only thing that's really I think the Dolphins are going to win the division.
Oh,
I think the offense is just too strong and I think it's just going to win enough games to win the division. I think the Jets finish second, the Bills finish third, and I do not. If I had to guess, I do not think the Bills make the playoffs.
Wow, this is fun because we are totally opposite sides.
I understand
think the
that.
Bills are going to win the division.
And
the Jets will come in second and make the playoffs, and I think the Dolphins will come in third and not make the playoffs.
And that's fair, and that's the fun part about this division because all of those scenarios are out there. So it's going to be really exciting to see, really what happens with these teams because all those fan bases are hungry for something good to happen.
My favorite part about that, Matt, neither of us mentioned the Patriots because we both know how bad they are and going to come
exactly
by far.
But think about it. The Patriots won, I think, the division 20 straight years or so.
Right. So
these 3 fan bases are like, oh, my God, the Patriots are shit.
Yeah.
They're finally shit. So they can see a future without Tom Brady breaking their souls.
Let's move quickly to the NFC South. Probably the worst division in football.
It ain't great.
No, I don't. If it's not the worst, it's first or second worst.
I can tell you right now, the Super Bowl champion will not be coming out of the NFC South.
Oh, bold statement, Matt. Very bold statement. So NFC South, it's the Panthers, it's the Saints, it's Tampa Bay.
Oof.
and it's who am I forgetting?
I just want to watch you to see how long it takes you.
Well, just cut it out. I don't care.
I think what we should do is just start talking about the division, and then I'll just bring them up, and you'll just jump right in.
No, because I'm going to cut it out. So just tell me who it is.
Falcons.
Ah. All right, let's go to the NFC South. We have the Falcons, the Saints.
That's a good division.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers. I think for the most part, everyone has just like penciled in the Falcons to win this division.
No thanks.
Tampa Bay is going to probably take a step back. I mean, they made it to the divisional round last year. They were really close to making it to the NFC Championship.
There has not been a day in my life where I have not liked Baker Mayfield. I have never for a moment thought that he's a bad quarterback. He has.
I didn't like him when he was on the Browns just because, like, F the Browns.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, sure. But, like, I don't care about stuff like that. I think that he has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and those guys are NFL receivers, and it's a really good starting point for a quarterback.
Yeah.
That and a professional offensive line that's got people that won Super Bowls on them.
Is he going to come back? Like, is he going to take a step back? The offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, his name's Dave Canales, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
He went to Carolina.
Yes.
So that, you got to think there's at least going to be some sort of hibbity-jibbity regression there.
I mean, hibbity-jibbity regression's a bold statement. I think you might have gone a little far there with the hibbity-jibbity.
I stand by my hibbity. I stand by my.
All right. Well, we'll timestamp this one. But it doesn't matter. That team is good. It's a good, well-rounded team.
They're a very solid team.
They're not great though. They're not. But Levante David is still there.
Yeah.
Still causing havoc. They still have Vita Vea, who is the best run stuffer in the NFL.
He's huge. Yeah.
He's huge, and he's athletic, and he's great. He's basically Haloti Ngata.
Right. Not quite. He's a poor man's Haloti.
Yeah, Haloti was very special, and special to me.
Yeah, me too. He's a great guy.
Yes, but it's a good, well-rounded team. It's an organization that didn't really know look, they went for it with Tom Brady and they won the Super Bowl. Yeah. Then he retires, as they knew that he was going to, because he was 45 years old. What do? They get a competent quarterback in there, and they look like a competent team. And there's not a lot of negatives I can say about them. Rachaad White's a perfectly fine running back.
Yeah.
He's solid. And
they
Mike
drafted
Evans
They drafted a second running back to shore him up.
And it's a good offensive line. It's a really good offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, that's where, like, you have the general rule of football. You have a good offensive line, you have a good defensive line, you have a good football team. So
they draft well in Tampa. They've been running a 3-4 defense for literally the last 15 years, and they stockpile big guys up front. They always have great middle linebackers, and they always have good pass rush. Now, they did lose Shaq Barrett, but Shaq Barrett hasn't been Shaq Barrett for about 4 years. So I don't think that that's too big of a disaster.
No,
overall,
I agree.
Overall, good team, good vibes.
A Todd Bowles defense is sort of like, hey, this is what we play. We're going to come get you type of defense. There's not a ton of like scheming individually week to week. In a modern like against teams with modern offenses, sometimes they have a tendency to struggle, but they're good fundamentally, and they're going to be a solid team. I don't think they're going to make the divisional round again.
Not necessarily, and we'll talk about their playoff chances, at the end of the segment.
Yeah. So okay, let's move back to the Falcons. So this when we brought them up initially, you sort of seemed like you were sour on them, which is the first I've heard this from you.
I just don't know who's going to play. I mean, I just don't know what Kirk Cousins is going to look like in this situation. You can say whatever you want. He doesn't have Justin Jefferson anymore.
Right.
Like, he had the best receiver on earth. Okay. Drake London's never done a thing in the NFL. He has never done a thing.
Get your U.S. citizenship and then talk to me,
I'm not sure that it's going to be a huge problem for Cousins. I do think he's good. London can. The problem with all these guys is you don't know anything about them because because Atlanta stuck them with Desmond Ridder, who's in the running for worst starting quarterback I've ever seen start an NFL game.
Well, so that's what we brought this up a couple weeks ago too. It's just like they're the wait and see offense. Every one of them. I mean, they're projected to be high fantasy draft picks, but we really just don't know. Along with the question mark of Kirk Cousins' Achilles, we just don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I still think they're probably. I mean, the division, the other two teams in this division are pretty bad.
They are, and I think that they will win games because, one, they're in the NFL. I mean, they're in the NFC, so the majority of their schedule is going to be winnable. And two, Kirk Cousins, you know that he is a
can
good,
win game. He's a
solid
competent
quarterback. Yes,
he
is competent, and he is going to be playing indoors, which is good for him because the surroundings are very important for him. And also, another good thing, he doesn't have to play on Monday night, which is his Achilles heel throughout his entire career.
They're not playing on Monday night this year? I didn't know that.
I would hope not. I mean, I don't think the Falcons have a Monday night game. I'm sure they have a Thursday. Typically, they only give Monday night games to teams that make the playoffs, or are typically you earn them.
They did bring in Justin Simmons from Denver, and they brought in Matt Judon.
Well, that's a good point because Justin Simmons gives them arguably, on paper, the best starting safeties in the NFL with Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons.
Besides the Ravens.
Ravens are a little bit different because I think you're viewing Hamilton more as a safety. I'm viewing him more of like a slot linebacker safety hybrid type guy.
Yeah, I'm going to view him as how he's listed. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Either way, the safety combo that you just brought up was a great point to go along with AJ Terrell, who just signed a long-term deal and is a top-notch shutdown corner.
Yeah.
Now you start coming in from that secondary. You start getting those are where the questions are. The linebacking core is
weak linebacking core.
Weak at best. They did get Judon, but Judon's 32 years old. The defensive line does have Grady Jarrett, but Grady Jarrett is in his 30s, is on the downside of his career.
And Judon is coming off of an injury too, and the Patriots just let him go. So. Yeah,
and they did, and he didn't want to be there. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. And Judon could be good. I mean, that's the type of guy who can be good into his 30s. He's a badass.
He's a professional defensive end. He's going to be solid.
Absolutely.
Whether he's going to be dynamic, likely not coming off an injury, but who knows.
So it's really just going to come down to how this team meshes, with their new coach, how they set up their offense, and if they're going to be imaginative and inventive and get these guys open, if are they going to utilize Pitts, are they going to utilize London, are they going to utilize Bijan in a way that will make them the stars that everyone projected them to be? That's going to be the question. I don't know.
Yeah, that is the question. And with a new coach and Raheem Morris, Arthur Smith definitely did not put them in the best position to win. Raheem Morris. He was the coach in Tampa like 10 years ago. He did not do well, but he's been the defensive coordinator in San Francisco. He's learned a ton. I think he was due for the second chance. I think he's going to be a good coach. It remains to be seen.
I just think that team might have needed. I mean, I think they might have been better off with an offensive-minded head coach, to be honest with you.
Considering all their stars are on offense.
Yeah, I just don't know.
There's a lot of questions. That's what NFL teams do. Arthur Smith was a quote unquote offensive guy, and it didn't work out, so they went defensive guy. It happens every single time.
It's true. It's true. When the reality is, it doesn't really matter if you're a good coach. No. You're a good coach. Ask John Harbaugh, special teams coach. Ask Andy Reid, quarterbacks coach. Like these guys. Like you either know ball or you don't. And Raheem Morris clearly does.
You can either dictate and delegate, or you can't, because you cannot control everything as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, Raheem Morris spent the last few years being the defensive coordinator of the Rams, and Sean McVay could not speak higher of him. And from there, it's a fine hire. It's a wait and see team for me, though.
I'll agree with you there. Let's move on to the Saints, which are just not fun. There's no fun to talk about them at all.
I just think it's a team that has given up trying.
They're just bleh. They're just so mediocre in every. Like, Kamara was good 5 years ago. Chris Olave's really good, but Derek Carr is not inspiring.
Derek Carr makes me sad. If Derek Carr was my quarterback, if Derek Carr's your quarterback, you're not really going to do anything. He had one good year his entire career. Let's be real about Derek Carr. His second year in the league was great, and that was it.
And then he got injured, though. He got injured 2/3 of the way in on that year.
Because he's a statue.
Yeah.
He's his brother. They're very similar, him and his brother. His brother just flamed out of the league because no one gave him no one wanted to give him a shot.
Well, he also got sacked like 75 times his rookie year, and
it was
ruined his mentality completely.
It was a problem. They didn't think that was essentially a college team going against an NFL team.
Yeah.
in reality,
I don't think Dennis Erickson is a good head coach.
Dennis Erickson was a great coach when he coached University of Miami in the early 90s. Dennis Allen's not great though.
Dennis Allen, I don't think he's a good defensive coordinator.
Did you like Dennis Erickson's moments with the Seattle Seahawks in '94?
Yeah, that was good. It was really good.
His son was Craig.
I knew all those coaches back then.
His son was Craig Erickson. Everyone, when he walked by, would be like, "Ha, Craig."
Ha, Craig. Now I'm not cutting that out. That was great. No, Dennis Allen has not proven to be a good head coach. I just don't like.
Why is he still there?
They're so I keep saying uninspiring. There's nothing there's nothing exciting about them. Even Chris Olave, who could be a top 10 receiver in this league, is just dangling there.
He's in purgatory.
Yeah.
Oh, we said the same thing.
Look at that, Matt.
Oh my God, jinx on the purgatory.
And so I mean, I'm bored talking about them, and we've been only talking about them for like a minute and a half.
When you're talking, real quick though, let me to explain to our millions of listeners about why the Saints are in this situation. Late in Drew Brees' career, the Saints decided to go all in.
Yeah,
they maxed out their cap and gave people huge contracts, and they backloaded them. Since that happened, every single time the season ends, the Saints are over the cap more than any other team in the entire NFL every single year. So they're continually passing the buck down to pushing things later on. That's why that's why all these 37-year-old players are still on this roster making huge money, because it's all guaranteed now, because they keep passing the buck down the road.
They're essentially just restructuring their contracts to make the money last a year further out. Divest a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, move this signing bonus, roster bonus, this to next year, et cetera, and that's how they're getting by. It's like, but what it does is it really limits your flexibility in bringing in free agents and draft and who you can draft and who you can trade for.
Well, bringing in free agents, that's not a thing for them anymore,
right?
Like they can't sign anybody. And they're a middling team, so the players are still functional. So they're not bottoming out to get a star quarterback or something like that. So I'm not really sure what the future is going to hold for them, but I guess they're just fine being 7-9 every year.
Let's go to the last team in the division. By far, the best team in the division, the Carolina Panthers. Sarcasm.
You're talking about a guy who's trying to take Daniel Snyder's place as the worst owner in the NFL.
Well, Daniel Snyder's not an owner anymore, so he's in the running.
Tepper saw he saw that Snyder's gone, and he saw that there's an opening to be a laughing stock, and he's right there.
There's the mantle. I want to achieve it.
How they took Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud in the first place? A bad in the moment move. Bryce Young.
Not even that, right? Let's just take that evaluation.
Well, that's the
aside.
Biggest deal. That's a franchise killer.
Let's just put it aside for a second. To trade up for the number one pick with the Bears, who had the number one pick, and they didn't know who they were going to take, and then decided on Bryce Young very late in the process. To trade up without a guarantee of this is who I want and I know who I want, I'm going to get this guy, is idiotic. It's just like Tepper was just like, I want the number one pick, make it happen. It's like, what does that do?
It's not like it was okay, we're going to take we have the first pick, whatever. They mortgaged their future for it. They gave up Caleb Williams for it.
Right. Because they were the worst team in the league last year and had the first pick, which they traded to the Bears the year before to get Bryce Young. It's an insane scenario. Now, I will say this. Bryce Young looks better in the preseason.
I think that there's a real chance that the Panthers will be drafting a quarterback first overall next year.
That would be hilarious if that happens.
I mean, what would you do if you're if you're them in that situation? If Bryce Young this year has another 1-16 year or 2-15 year.
Yeah.
And Carson Beck is coming off his his second national championship. What are you going to do?
If they go 2-15, or if it's like 4 wins or under, and Bryce Young just looks horrible, you gotta draft the quarterback. Yeah. You have to.
But the thing is, Bryce Young never looks horrible. He just doesn't do anything. It's a lot of running around and throwing the ball away. He doesn't fumble. He doesn't throw a lot of picks. He's not a total disaster. You just see a little guy who's not that fast running for his life. It doesn't look right. It does not look healthy for him.
When he was coming out, everyone kept talking about his best attribute was his poise. How he was never panicking. How he was never rushing. It's just, what does that get you if you don't have the arm talent or the size to be an NFL quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, Danny Werfel at University of Florida in the mid '90s, he was poised as can be, but the dude couldn't throw well enough for the NFL, and he was gone in a week.
Right.
There's not that big of a difference between the guys. Danny Werfel won the Heisman Trophy too. Sometimes Ty Detmer won the Heisman Trophy. He sucked in the NFL because if you cannot zip the ball down the field properly and you can't see over the line of scrimmage to throw the ball in the middle of the field consistently, you don't have a shot in the modern NFL. Ask Russell Wilson how that worked out for him later in his career.
No, Drew Brees and Russell Wilson for the first half of his career are anomalies because
Drew Brees figured it out.
Yeah,
Drew Brees is a freak, so he doesn't count.
I don't know how he figured it out, to be honest, because he never even had the best arm.
He had a way with angles and footwork where he could get himself set up in a way that was just brilliant. I mean, the guy saw he just saw football different than everyone else. Like if Drew Brees was 6'5", he'd probably win a Super Bowl every year. He'd probably be the best quarterback ever. I mean, the guy understood. He's a savant, and what he did with his career is one of the wildest things for a quarterback that size that's not fast.
Coming back to the Panthers, they traded away Brian Burns, right?
Brian Burns is so happy.
Future capital. Yeah, Brian Burns is thrilled.
The Burns family is like, yes.
They traded for Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh.
Oh, he's a miserable, miserable human being.
Yeah, not a great guy. But he is going to be a number one wide receiver on that team.
I've
never
seen a receiver complain more than him.
I have.
I mean,
Terrell
for years.
T.O.
Yeah,
complained.
But I mean, he's allowed. I mean, I don't care if someone's great and they're complaining they don't give him the ball.
That's fair.
Why wasn't someone giving T.O. 20 targets a game? Like, I never understood why T.O. and Randy Moss didn't just get 25 targets a game. Why wouldn't Randy Moss run down the field 30 times and you throw it 10, 15 times?
I agree. I agree with that.
I get wanting to switch things up, but, like, some guys are just better than other people on the field.
So
there's nothing to talk about with this team.
Not
You're
a lot
trying
more
to think of it.
Talk about with the Panthers.
I mean, it's a bad offensive line. It's a bad receiving. It's a bad running back room. The defense has literally
Jonathan
nothing.
Brooks might be good next year.
I mean,
he's going to be injured the first half of the season.
I'm not a big fan of relying on running backs that tear their ACLs. They might never be the same. You lose a couple steps. If you're not a 4'2" guy, or if you're not 250 pounds, if you're kind of like a tweener like Brooks is, and he's not going to be fast or not as shifty, he might just not be great.
All right, so let's go to your division top to bottom. Who do you got?
I'm sticking with the Buccaneers as more of a safe pick to win the division. Just It's not because I don't think the Falcons are more talented or couldn't win the division. I just think that they're the safer, more like set in stone team. Then I'll go to Atlanta second, Saints third, and the Panthers are going to fight for the first pick with the Patriots.
So I really want to pick Tampa because everyone likes the Falcons, and I want to pivot from that. But I'm going to pivot from you for the content, and I'm going to pick Atlanta, coming first in the division, then Tampa, then the Aints, then Carolina.
Yeah, we're not that far off there. I mean,
with
that division, I really think it's probably only one of those two teams can win the division.
I can get to the playoffs.
I think you're probably looking at like a 9-8, 8-9 record.
Let me say this. Who do you think is going to be the worst team, the Patriots or the Panthers?
I think the Patriots, because their division's tougher, they're in the AFC, and the Panthers at least are trying to build something. They at least drafted Xavier Legette from South Carolina, who does have talent. They did try to get Deontay Johnson, who does have talent. They still have Thielen, who is a professional. There's reasons to be like, oh, maybe this team could be a little fun, but like Patriots have nothing.
Okay. We're at 56 minutes in.
My battery's about to die.
Okay, so then we'll save the tiers for maybe we'll hop back on tomorrow and do some tiers and just release like a short one.
Okay, that's a good idea.
All right,
perfect.
That was our preview of the AFC East and the NFC South. Looks like we're going to come back and do some little funky short content for you tomorrow. We'll release it. But until then,
little midweek fun or end of week fun.
Thank you for joining us today, Matt. It was a pleasure. You are at the top of your game as always.
You look marvelous.
Oh, well, that's as long as you compliment me in my looks, you can say whatever else you want.
I hope I wasn't scratching my ass the entire time on video.
I'm leaving that in, so thank you.
All right.
So
be it.
Subscribe to our YouTube page at Monday Night Conversations Podcast. And we're going to be on social. We're going to be cutting up some vids for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like and subscribe this. Subscribe to the YouTube page. That'd be fun. A lot of cool content coming. And do me a favor. Take care of yourself. And each other.
Do you know Lester Holt says that?
Seriously? He stole our bit?
Lester
Holt stole our bit?
He stole it like 10 years ago.
Son of a bitch.
We've been doing that since the 90s. He doesn't even know it.
No, he has no idea.
Well, he stole it from Jerry Springer, so I don't think I think it's public domain at this point.
I think we all stole it from Jerry Springer.
Yeah, and he should be, he was a big part of my childhood.
I'm stopping it.